Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that the football club your community has loved for generations is gone. Not relegated. Not defeated. Gone. For decades, Bloemfontein Celtic was more than a football club. It was the sound of Sundays in Mongang. It was green and white shirts in the streets. It was singing, dancing and thousands of supporters proudly calling themselves Sawalili. But in 2021, everything changed. A club founded in 1969, a club that had survived relegation, financial problems and countless battles, suddenly lost its place in South Africa's top flight. Its Premier Soccer League status was sold. Its football operation moved away from Bloemfontein. And the club that had represented the Free State for more than half a century was no longer competing in the PSL. So what really happened to Bloemfontein Celtic? And perhaps the biggest question of all, could Sawalili ever truly come back? To understand why Celtic disappeared, we first have to understand what the club meant. Bloemfontein Celtic was founded in 1969, originally as Mongang United, by Norman Mathabiza and Victor Mahete. Over the years, the club developed into one of the most recognizable football institutions in the Free State. And then came the man who would become deeply connected with the club's identity, Petrus Whitehead Mulamila. Celtic wasn't simply building a football team. It was building a culture. The supporters became known as Sawalili, and their reputation traveled far beyond Bloemfontein. They sang. They danced. They created an atmosphere that made Celtic's home matches feel different. The club had something that money could not easily buy: identity. And that identity would eventually become one of the most painful parts of its disappearance. Celtic's journey was never perfect. In 2001, the club was relegated from the top flight. For many clubs, that can be the beginning of the end. But Celtic fought back. After spending 3 seasons away from the Premiership, the club won the First Division in the 2003-04 season and returned to the top flight. Then came another important chapter. In 2005, the Celtic won the SA Super 8, proving that the club could compete with the biggest names in South African football. And in 2012, the Celtic produced one of the most memorable moments in its history. They defeated Mamelodi Sundowns in the Telkom knockout final at Moses Mabhida Stadium. That victory gave Celtic its third major trophy. The club had history. It had supporters. It had trophies. And it had a place in South African football. But behind the scenes, another story was developing. The financial pressure was becoming harder to ignore. Football is emotional. But professional football is also a business. And Bloemfontein Celtic increasingly found itself under financial pressure. By the time Max Chabalala was running the club, financial sustainability had become a major concern. Celtic remained competitive on the pitch, but maintaining a professional football club requires enormous resources. Players have to be paid. Staff have to be paid. Travel costs money. Stadiums cost money. Running a professional academy costs money. And every season brings another financial challenge. Celtic supporters could fill the stands with passion. But passion alone cannot pay the bills. And eventually, the club reached a point where its PSL status became an asset that could potentially be sold. Then came 2021. The rumors became stronger. And suddenly, the unthinkable was becoming real. In August 2021, the Premier Soccer League confirmed the news Celtic supporters feared. Bloemfontein Celtic had been sold to Royal AM. The club's PSL status was being transferred. And it was moving away from the Free State. The destination was KwaZulu-Natal. The PSL said the league had considered the financial stability of the club and the interests of affected stakeholders before approving the transaction. Reports at the time put the deal at around $50 million. But for supporters, the value was never about $50 million. Because how do you put a price on more than 5 decades of history? How do you put a price on the songs? How do you put a price on the memories? How do you put a price on the green and white shirt that a father passed to his son? For Celtic supporters, this wasn't simply the sale of a football business. It felt like the sale of a part of their community. And that is why the story became so emotional. The club wasn't simply leaving Bloemfontein. Its identity was being separated from the city that had created it. The transaction created a complicated football situation. The club previously known as Bloemfontein Celtic entered the DStv Premiership as Royal AM with its home venue in KwaZulu-Natal. Meanwhile, Royal AM's previous second-tier status was transferred to Chakuma Chaumadzev. In administrative terms, the deal created a pathway for a new club to enter the top flight. But emotionally, for Saiwaleli, something had been lost. The team they had supported for generations was no longer playing home matches in Bloemfontein. The green and white identity that had filled stadiums across the Free State had been broken apart. And the supporters were left asking, what happens to a club when its name, colors, history, and supporters no longer control where it plays? But there was one thing the sale could not erase. The supporters. Saiwaleli refused to simply forget. In the years that followed, the supporters organized campaigns and discussed ways of bringing their beloved club back. The emotional attachment was so strong that even when other teams came to Bloemfontein, Celtic's absence remained obvious. The city still had football. But something was missing. In 2022, the appearance of Royal AM in the McCuff Cup created another emotional moment. For Celtic supporters, seeing the club that had acquired their former team's PSL status playing in an event historically associated with Bloemfontein Celtic was deeply painful. The message from supporters was clear. You can move the club. You cannot move the memories. Complicated. Bloemfontein Celtic did not completely disappear from football. The club continued at lower levels after losing its PSL status. There were attempts to rebuild. There were hopes of promotion. There were even discussions about buying a professional status and returning to the PSL. But the road back was not easy. In January 2025, Celtic withdrew from the ABC Motsip League, with the club saying it wanted to dispose of its name and trademarks to a suitable consortium capable of obtaining professional status and bringing Bloemfontein Celtic back to the PSL. That decision showed something important. The story of Celtic was not necessarily finished. It was simply unfinished. The question was no longer, did Bloemfontein Celtic disappear? The real question became, what would it take to bring Saiwaleli home? Bloemfontein Celtic gave South African football much more than results. It produced players. It produced coaches. It created unforgettable matches. It gave the Free State a football identity. And it created one of the most recognizable supporter cultures in the country. From the green and white shirts, to the songs in the stands, to the famous Saiwaleli atmosphere, Celtic became part of the cultural fabric of Bloemfontein. That is why the club's disappearance still hurts. Because football clubs can be bought. Statuses can be transferred. Names can be changed. But history belongs to the people who lived it. Maybe one day, the green and white will return to the biggest stage. Maybe one day, the Dr. Petrus Molemela Stadium will once again shake to the sound of thousands of Saiwaleli supporters. And maybe one day, a new generation will ask their parents, What was Bloemfontein Celtic? And their parents will smile. They'll tell them about the songs, the trophies, the players, the unforgettable Sundays. And they'll say, that wasn't just a football club. That was our home. Bloemfontein Celtic may have disappeared from the PSL, but it never disappeared from the hearts of its supporters. This is the story of Saiwalili. A club that fell. A community that refused to forget. And a football identity that is still waiting for its next chapter. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to GSU Goal Squad Universe for more untold stories from South African football. Like this video, share it with a fellow football fan, and tell us in the comments. Do you believe Bloemfontein Celtic can return to the PSL and become a major force again? Until next time. Keep the passion alive. Keep the history alive. And never forget where the game came from. GSU Goal Squad Universe.